The morning that changed everything. Ruby Martinez stood outside Brew Haven with exactly $43 in her wallet, a broken phone screen, and 20 minutes before her shift at the bakery started. Life had become a series of racing between jobs, catching buses at the last second, and somehow finding reasons to laugh when everything felt impossibly hard. At 26, she had learned that humor was cheaper than therapy and more effective than crying. Today started like any other chaotic morning. Her alarm had failed to go off because she forgot to charge her phone overnight. Her apartment's hot water stopped working halfway through her shower. The zipper on her only clean jacket broke as she rushed out the door. Most people would crumble under this constant stream of mishaps. Ruby turned them into material for her weekend comedy sets at the Laughing Owl, a tiny underground club where she performed for enthusiastic crowds of about 30 people. Collision course. The coffee shop buzzed with morning energy. Business professionals typed furiously on laptops. Students hunched over textbooks. The espresso machine hissed and gurgled like a mechanical dragon. Ruby joined the line, mentally rehearsing her order and calculating if she could afford an extra shot of espresso. Her tired brain desperately needed caffeine. She was scrolling through her cracked phone screen, reading a text from her roommate about their overdue electric bill, when it happened. Someone behind her shifted suddenly. Ruby stumbled forward, arms flailing for balance. Her bag swung wide, knocking into the person ahead of her. That person turned quickly, holding a large cup of black coffee. Everything moved in slow motion yet happened too fast to stop. The coffee cup tilted. Dark liquid arced through the air in a perfect wave. Ruby watched in horror as the entire contents splashed across the front of the most expensive-looking suit she had ever seen. The man wearing that suit stood completely still. Coffee dripped from his crisp white shirt, his silver tie, his charcoal jacket. The entire coffee shop fell silent. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned toward the disaster unfolding near the counter. When disaster meets comedy. Ruby's brain screamed at her to apologize profusely, to offer to pay for dry cleaning, maybe to simply run away and never return. But her mouth, as always in moments of extreme stress, decided to make jokes instead. "Well, that's one way to add flavor to your morning," she heard herself say into the terrible silence. "Though I usually recommend asking for coffee inside the cup, not on the outside." A few shocked gasps rippled through the watching crowd. The man looked down at his ruined suit, then up at Ruby. She got her first clear look at him and felt her heart do something strange in her chest. He was probably in his early 30s, with dark hair styled with casual precision and eyes the color of storm clouds. His features were sharp and handsome in that way that usually made Ruby nervous. But what struck her most was the expression on his face. Not anger, not even annoyance. Something closer to surprise mixed with curiosity. "I'm so incredibly sorry," Ruby continued, grabbing napkins from the counter and approaching him with exaggerated concern. "I've been practicing my coffee throwing skills, but clearly I need more training. The judges are going to score that technique very poorly." Someone laughed. Just one person, but it was enough to break the frozen tension. Ruby dabbed uselessly at his shoulder with the thin napkins. "In my defense, you were standing in a high-risk coffee zone. There should be warning signs. Yellow tape, maybe some caution cones. I'll speak to management about better safety protocols." More laughter now, spreading through the coffee shop like warmth returning after winter. The man spoke for the first time. His voice was deep and smooth, with a hint of something that sounded almost like amusement. "Do you always handle disasters with comedy?" "Only the ones I cause personally," Ruby shot back. "For disasters caused by others, I prefer interpretive dance. Much more dramatic." He smiled then. Not a polite social smile, but something genuine that transformed his entire face from handsome to absolutely stunning. Ruby felt that strange flutter in her chest again. An unexpected introduction. I'm Ruby, she said, extending her hand before remembering it was covered in coffee. She grimaced. Professional disaster creator, amateur comedian, and apparently a menace to well-dressed businessmen everywhere. He took her hand anyway. Sebastian Vale. Professional technology executive, amateur coffee model apparently. The name hit Ruby like ice water. Sebastian Vale. The Sebastian Vale. She'd seen his face on magazine covers at grocery store checkout lines. Forbes had called him the youngest self-made billionaire in the tech industry. He'd built Vale Industries from a college startup into a global empire before turning 30. She had just dumped an entire cup of coffee on one of the richest men in America. Oh no, Ruby breathed. You're that Sebastian Vale. The tech genius. The billionaire. The guy who literally revolutionized cloud computing. Is there another Sebastian Vale? He asked, and his smile widened at her obvious panic. I'm so fired from life, Ruby muttered. I'm banned from all coffee shops in the city. Possibly the entire state. The unexpected turn. Or, Sebastian said, his eyes holding hers with an intensity that made her forget about the dozens of people watching them, you could let me buy you a replacement coffee. Since mine is currently decorating my suit. You want to buy me coffee? After I assaulted you with yours? I want to hear more of your comedy routine. That bit about warning signs was promising. Ruby stared at him, searching for the joke. Billionaires didn't buy coffee for clumsy waitresses who destroyed their expensive suits. They called lawyers. They complained to management. They definitely didn't smile like they'd just witnessed the most interesting thing to happen all week. But Sebastian's expression remained open, genuinely interested. Behind them, the barista cleared her throat pointedly. The line was backing up. I have to get to work, Ruby said, glancing at her phone. She was now definitely late. But I appreciate the offer. Then give me your number, Sebastian replied smoothly. Let me make it up to you later. Make it up to me? I'm the one who owes you a suit. You gave me the best laugh I've had in months. That's worth more than dry cleaning. Ruby found herself pulling out her phone, the cracked screen suddenly embarrassing in front of this man who probably upgraded to the latest model before it even hit stores. She typed her number into his phone, a sleek device that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The promise of something more. Don't block my number, Sebastian said as she handed back his phone. It's the only way I can collect on that coffee date. Can't afford to change my number anyway, Ruby admitted with a self-deprecating smile. He laughed at that, another one of those genuine sounds that seemed rare and precious. Someone called his name from near the door. An assistant type in an equally expensive suit, looking impatient and concerned about the coffee disaster. Sebastian glanced back, then returned his attention to Ruby. I have to go. But I'll text you. Sure, Ruby said, not quite believing it. Looking forward to it. She watched him walk away, his assistant fussing over the stained suit, other customers parting like he was royalty. Ruby stood alone near the coffee shop counter, her heart racing and the strangest feeling that her chaotic life had just shifted in a completely unexpected direction. Her phone buzzed before she even left the shop. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for the most interesting morning I've had in years. And for reminding me that disasters can be entertaining. Lunch tomorrow? I promise to wear a coffee-proof suit. Below the message was a business card photo. Sebastian Vale, CEO, Vale Industries. Ruby laughed out loud, startling several nearby customers. Her $43 budget, her broken phone screen, her constantly chaotic life suddenly felt full of impossible possibility. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. And for the first time in months, Ruby couldn't wait to see what the punchline would be, the text that changed everything. Ruby spent the next 24 hours convinced she had imagined the entire coffee shop encounter. Billionaires didn't text struggling bakers. They didn't ask for lunch dates. They definitely didn't smile at women who destroyed their $1,000 suits with caffeinated beverages. But her phone proved otherwise. 3 more messages had arrived since that first one. Still interested in lunch? I know a place that serves excellent coffee. I promise not to wear it this time. That was a joke. I'm working on my comedy material. You're a tough act to follow. This is Sebastian, by the way. In case you deleted my number thinking I was a spam caller. Ruby read them while kneading dough at Sunrise Bakery, her flour-covered hands leaving white prints on her phone screen. Her coworker Jen kept glancing over with obvious curiosity. Who keeps making you smile like that? Jen asked. You look like you won the lottery. Just a guy, Ruby said, trying to sound casual. We sort of met yesterday. Sort of met? Girl, you've been grinning at your phone for 20 minutes. That's not sort of anything. Ruby typed back a response, her heart doing that strange flutter thing again. Lunch sounds great. But I should warn you, my track record with beverages is questionable. You might want to bring a backup suit. His reply came immediately. Already packed 3. Meet me at Meridian Bistro at noon. Stepping into another world. Meridian Bistro was not the casual sandwich shop Ruby had imagined. It was the kind of restaurant that had reviews in fancy food magazines and required reservations weeks in advance. The kind of place where Ruby would normally never set foot because looking at the menu prices would give her anxiety. She stood outside at 11:55, wearing her nicest dress, a simple navy blue number she usually saved for comedy showcases. Next to the elegantly dressed people entering the restaurant, she felt like a child playing dress-up in adult clothes. Sebastian appeared from a black car that probably cost more than Ruby would earn in 5 years. He wore a different suit, this one a deep navy that matched his eyes. When he smiled at her, some of Ruby's nervousness melted away. You came, he said, sounding genuinely pleased. You paid for my Uber, Ruby pointed out. It would have been rude to waste your money. I wanted to make sure you actually showed up. I was half convinced you'd block my number and pretend yesterday never happened. The thought crossed my mind, Ruby admitted. Seemed safer than whatever this is. Sebastian's expression grew serious. This is lunch between 2 people who enjoyed talking to each other. Nothing scary about that. A proposal over pasta. Inside, the restaurant was all soft lighting and quiet conversations. The host greeted Sebastian by name and led them to a private corner table. Ruby noticed how other diners glanced their way, recognizing Sebastian, wondering who she was. Do you always get the best table? Ruby asked once they were seated. One of the few perks of success, Sebastian replied. That and people pretending to laugh at my jokes even when they're terrible. So you do make jokes? I thought billionaires were all business all the time. We are. But sometimes the business is figuring out how to have actual conversations with interesting people. The waiter appeared with menus. Ruby opened hers and immediately felt her stomach drop. The prices weren't even listed. That meant they were definitely too expensive for her world. Sebastian noticed her expression. Order anything you want. Lunch is on me. Consider it payment for the entertainment you provided yesterday. That entertainment cost you a suit. That suit cost me nothing. Watching you turn a disaster into comedy? That was priceless. Ruby found herself relaxing as they ordered. Sebastian asked about her life, her comedy, her dreams. He listened with genuine interest when she talked about performing at the Laughing Owl, about her job at the bakery, about her constant struggle to make ends meet while chasing an impossible dream. Why comedy? He asked. What made you decide to pursue something so difficult? Because laughing is free, Ruby said simply. And when everything in your life feels hard, making other people laugh makes it all feel worthwhile. Every joke that lands, Every person who smiles because of something I said, that's proof that joy still exists even when things are falling apart. Sebastian studied her with that intense gaze that made her feel simultaneously visible and vulnerable. That's beautiful. Most people I know chase money or power. You chase happiness. Can't pay rent with happiness, Ruby pointed out. Trust me, I've tried. He laughed, that genuine sound she was starting to crave. Which brings me to why I actually invited you here. The offer. Ruby felt her heart skip. This was it. The moment he explained this was all some elaborate joke, or worse, some kind of charity case he'd decided to help out of pity. But Sebastian's next word surprised her completely. Vale Industries hosts dozens of corporate events every year. Investor dinners, charity galas, product launches. They're necessary but incredibly boring. Everyone performs their wealth and success. Everyone pretends to care about conversations they'll forget the moment they end. He leaned forward, his expression intent. What happened at the coffee shop, your ability to turn disaster into entertainment, that's rare. Most people freeze when things go wrong. You made an entire room laugh. So you want me to spill coffee on people professionally? Ruby joked, but her pulse was racing. I want to hire you as my +1 for these events. Not as a date, he added quickly. As a professional companion who can make boring evenings bearable. Someone who can help me remember that business doesn't have to be completely joyless. Ruby stared at him. You want to pay me to attend fancy parties with you? I want to pay you to be yourself at fancy parties. To provide the same perspective you gave me yesterday. To remind me and everyone else that life is supposed to include laughter. That's the strangest job offer I've ever received. Is that a no? Ruby's mind raced. This was insane. Billionaires didn't hire struggling comedians as professional companions. This had to be some elaborate setup for a reality show or a practical joke. But Sebastian's expression remained earnest, patient, waiting for her answer. What would this actually involve? Ruby asked carefully. The details. 3 to 4 events per month, Sebastian explained. Usually evenings, occasionally weekends. I'd provide appropriate attire for each event. You'd attend with me, interact with guests, be your naturally entertaining self. No script, no performance. Just you being you. And you'd pay me for this? $5,000 per event. Plus bonuses for particularly challenging evenings. Ruby nearly choked on her water. $5,000. She currently made that in 2 months working 2 jobs. 3 events would cover her rent for half a year. Why me? She asked. You could hire actual comedians. Professional entertainers. People who know how to work a room. Because they'd be performing, Sebastian said. You're not performing when you make jokes. You're surviving. There's an authenticity to that which can't be faked. Ruby sat back, her mind spinning. This could solve her money problems. This could give her time to focus on her comedy without constantly worrying about bills. This could change everything. There has to be a catch, she said finally. People don't just offer this kind of money without expecting something in return. Sebastian's expression grew serious. The catch is that my world is exhausting. These events are full of people who will judge you for not belonging. Who will say things designed to make you feel small. It requires thick skin and constant performance of a different kind. I've been poor my entire life, Ruby said. I know all about people making you feel small. At least at your fancy parties, there's good food. He smiled at that. Is that a yes? Taking the leap. Ruby thought about her overdue electric bill. Her broken phone screen. Her apartment with intermittent hot water. She thought about standing in that coffee shop yesterday, watching her life unfold in its usual chaotic pattern. She thought about Sebastian's genuine laugh. The way he looked at her like she mattered. The possibility of something different, something unexpected, something that might actually work. Yes, she said, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. But I have conditions. Name them. First, if this gets weird or uncomfortable, I can walk away. No questions, no hard feelings. Agreed. Second, you have to actually laugh at my jokes. No pity laughs. I'll know the difference. Deal. And third, Ruby hesitated, then pushed forward. You have to tell me the real reason you're doing this. Because I don't believe it's just about making boring parties less boring. Sebastian was quiet for a long moment. Outside their private corner, the restaurant hummed with lunch conversation. Silverware clinked against plates. Somewhere, someone laughed. You reminded me what genuine joy looks like, he said finally. I built an empire. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But somewhere along the way, I forgot how to actually enjoy any of it. Yesterday morning, covered in coffee and listening to you make jokes about warning signs, I laughed without thinking about stock prices or board meetings or anything except how absurd and wonderful that moment was. He met her eyes. I want more of those moments. And I think you're the person who can provide them. Ruby felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't about entertainment or business strategy. This was about loneliness dressed up in expensive suits and corporate success. Okay, she said softly. Let's do this. New beginnings. They spent the rest of lunch discussing logistics. Sebastian's assistant would contact her with event details. A stylist would help with wardrobe. Everything would be professional, structured, clear. But underneath the business talk, Ruby felt something else growing. The way Sebastian looked at her when she made him laugh. The way his formal demeanor cracked to reveal someone younger, more uncertain, more human than his public image suggested. As they left the restaurant, Sebastian's car waiting at the curb, he turned to her one more time. First event is Friday night. Investor dinner at the plaza. Can you handle it? I once performed stand-up comedy at a biker bar after someone else made inappropriate jokes about their motorcycles, Ruby said. I think I can handle some rich people eating expensive food. That's what I'm counting on. He opened the car door for her. As Ruby slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her entire furniture collection, she caught sight of her reflection in the window. The same woman who'd dumped coffee on a billionaire yesterday. The same struggling baker and comedian. But somehow different now. Standing at the edge of something unexpected. Something potentially wonderful or completely disastrous. Her phone buzzed as the car pulled away. Another text from Sebastian. Thank you for saying yes. I promise to make this worth your while. And to always keep backup suits on hand. Ruby smiled, typing back. Thank you for being crazy enough to offer. See you Friday. Try not to stand near any beverages. She watched the city pass by outside the car window, her heart full of nervous excitement. Life had thrown another curveball. And for once, Ruby was ready to swing, the night everything changed. Friday arrived faster than Ruby expected. She spent the week in a blur of normal life mixed with surreal preparation. Sebastian's stylist, a woman named Claire with impeccable taste and surprising warmth, had taken Ruby shopping at stores where individual dresses cost more than Ruby's monthly income. The gown they selected was deep emerald green, elegant without being flashy, beautiful without trying too hard. Now Ruby stood in front of her bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. Her dark hair was styled in soft waves. Her makeup was professionally done. The emerald dress fit perfectly, making her look like someone who belonged at fancy investor dinners instead of someone who served coffee and kneaded bread dough for a living. Her phone buzzed. Sebastian's car was downstairs. Ruby took a deep breath, grabbed her small clutch purse, and headed out to meet whatever this evening would bring. Entering his world. The Plaza Hotel glowed like a jewel against the night sky. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Women in designer gowns and men in custom tuxedos moved through the doors in elegant waves. Ruby felt her confidence waver as the car pulled up. Sebastian was waiting at the entrance. He wore a black tuxedo that fit him perfectly, his dark hair styled with casual precision. When he saw Ruby step out of the car, his expression shifted to something she couldn't quite read. Surprise mixed with appreciation mixed with something deeper. "You look incredible," he said, and his voice carried genuine awe. "Claire has magic powers," Ruby deflected, uncomfortable with the intensity of his gaze. "I'm pretty sure this dress is doing all the work." "The dress is beautiful. But you make it remarkable." Ruby felt heat rise in her cheeks. This was supposed to be professional. Business arrangement. Nothing more complicated than that. But the way Sebastian looked at her suggested nothing about tonight would be simple, dancing with danger. Inside, the ballroom was transformed into something from a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light across tables draped in white silk. A string quartet played classical music near a polished dance floor. Waiters moved smoothly between clusters of guests, offering champagne and appetizers that probably cost more per bite than Ruby spent on groceries each week. Sebastian guided her through the crowd with a hand at the small of her back. His touch was light, respectful, but Ruby felt aware of every point of contact. He introduced her to investors, tech executives, business partners. She smiled, made appropriate conversation, and watched how easily Sebastian moved through this world. But she also noticed the small cracks in his performance. The way his smile never quite reached his eyes during business talk. How his shoulders tensed when someone mentioned quarterly earnings. The subtle exhaustion that crept into his expression between conversations. "You okay?" Ruby whispered during a brief moment alone. "These events drain me," Sebastian admitted quietly. "Everyone wants something. Everyone's performing. It's exhausting pretending to care about conversations designed to extract value rather than create connection." "So let's not pretend," Ruby suggested. "What would happen if we just enjoyed the evening instead of working it?" Sebastian looked at her with surprise. "That's not how these things work." "Says who?" "You're the billionaire. Make new rules. Breaking the pattern." Something shifted in Sebastian's expression. Decision crystallizing into action. He took Ruby's hand. "Dance with me. I should warn you, my dancing is about as coordinated as my beverage handling. Then we'll be perfectly matched. I haven't actually danced at one of these events in years." He led her to the dance floor. The quartet was playing something slow and beautiful. Sebastian's hand found her waist. Ruby's hand rested on his shoulder. And suddenly they were moving together, swaying to music that seemed to exist just for them. "This is nice," Ruby said softly. "This is terrifying," Sebastian countered, but he was smiling. "I forgot how vulnerable dancing makes you. How exposed. Maybe that's the point. Maybe we're supposed to feel vulnerable sometimes." Sebastian pulled her slightly closer. Ruby could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. Could feel the warmth of his body through the layers of formal clothing. Could see the way he was looking at her, like she was solving a puzzle he'd been working on for years. "Tell me something true," Sebastian said suddenly. "Something real that has nothing to do with business or money or any of this." Ruby thought about deflecting with humor. It was her default defense mechanism. But something about this moment, about the way Sebastian was looking at her with such open honesty, made her want to match his vulnerability. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of all of this. Of how easy it is to be around you. Of how much I want this to be real instead of just a business arrangement." The confession. Sebastian stopped dancing. They stood in the middle of the floor, other couples moving around them like water around stones. His expression was intense, focused entirely on her. What if it could be real? He asked quietly. Ruby's heart hammered against her ribs. Sebastian, we barely know each other. You're a billionaire. I'm a baker who makes jokes to survive. This doesn't make sense. Nothing about us makes sense, he agreed. But that coffee shop collision, those text messages, this evening, none of it follows any logical pattern. And yet here we are. Here we are, Ruby echoed. I need to tell you something, Sebastian continued, his voice low enough that only she could hear over the music. I didn't hire you just to make boring events bearable. I hired you because you're the first person in years who made me feel actually alive. Who reminded me that success means nothing if you're miserable achieving it. Ruby felt tears prick her eyes. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone you met by accident. It wasn't an accident, Sebastian said. You crashed into my life exactly when I needed someone to shake everything up. To show me what I'd been missing while building my empire. And what were you missing? Joy. Laughter. Connection that isn't transactional. Someone who sees me instead of my net worth. Truth in the chaos. A waiter passed by carrying a tray of champagne glasses. Ruby and Sebastian both glanced at it and started laughing, remembering that first disaster that had brought them together. We should probably stay away from those, Ruby said. Probably wise, Sebastian agreed. Though I have to admit, getting covered in coffee was the best thing that happened to me in months. They moved off the dance floor to a quieter corner near the windows. The city sprawled below them, millions of lights representing millions of lives, each one complicated and messy and beautiful in its own way. I want to try this, Sebastian said, taking Ruby's hand. Actually try this. Not as boss and employee. Not as some weird arrangement. As two people who inexplicably found each other and want to see where it goes. Ruby squeezed his hand. That's terrifying. I know. I'm probably going to mess this up. I mess everything up. You turn messes into comedy gold, Sebastian reminded her. That's your superpower. What if this is different? What if we're different? Sebastian cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek. Then we'll figure it out together. We'll make mistakes and laugh about them. We'll navigate your world and my world until we build something that belongs to both of us. When did you get so good with words? Ruby asked, her voice shaky with emotion. About the time you dumped coffee on me and changed my entire perspective on what matters. The kiss that sealed everything. Sebastian leaned in slowly, giving Ruby every chance to pull away. But she didn't want to pull away. She wanted this moment, this man, this impossible beautiful connection that had started with disaster and grown into something she couldn't name but desperately wanted to keep. Their lips met softly at first, tentative and questioning. Then deeper, more certain, as if they were both finally admitting what had been building since that first collision in the coffee shop. Ruby felt her whole body respond, felt years of struggle and survival melt away in the warmth of being held by someone who saw her, truly saw her, and wanted her anyway. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Sebastian rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling for you, he whispered. Completely, impossibly, falling for you. That's the worst business decision you've ever made, Ruby whispered back. Best decision I've ever made, Sebastian corrected. Business or otherwise. New beginnings. They stayed at the gala for another hour, but everything felt different now. Ruby wasn't performing or surviving or pretending. She was simply herself, standing beside someone who valued that more than any polished persona. As they left the plaza, Sebastian's hand warm in hers, Ruby thought about the journey that had brought her here. All the disasters, all the struggles, all the moments where giving up seemed easier than continuing. Every single mess had led to this moment. What are you thinking about? Sebastian asked as they walked toward his waiting car. How glad I am that I never learned to carry coffee properly, Ruby said. He laughed, that genuine sound she loved, and pulled her close. Remind me to thank whatever cosmic force made you so wonderfully clumsy. You can thank the universe's twisted sense of humor. I will. Every single day. 6 months later. Ruby stood backstage at the Comedy Cellar, one of New York's most prestigious comedy clubs. She was headlining tonight, something that would have been impossible 6 months ago. But Sebastian had believed in her talent, had given her the financial stability to focus on writing and performing, had shown her that dreams could become reality with the right support. In the front row, she could see him sitting beside her roommate Jen, both of them waiting for her set to start. Sebastian caught her eye and smiled, that private smile that was just for her. Her life had transformed completely. She still worked at the bakery because she loved it, but now by choice rather than desperate necessity. She performed regularly at top venues. She'd moved into a better apartment with consistent hot water. Her phone screen was finally fixed. But more than any material improvement, she'd found something she never expected. Love with someone who challenged her, supported her, made her laugh even on difficult days. Someone who'd seen her at her most chaotic and decided she was exactly what he needed. The announcer called her name. Ruby walked onto the stage to enthusiastic applause. The spotlight was bright, the audience expectant. She grabbed the microphone and grinned. So 6 months ago, I dumped an entire cup of coffee on a billionaire, she began. And somehow, instead of suing me, he decided to fall in love with me. Which tells you everything you need to know about how weird rich people are. The audience laughed. Sebastian laughed loudest of all. Ruby launched into her set, telling their story with humor and heart, turning their collision into comedy that resonated with everyone who'd ever felt like life was one disaster after another. She talked about learning to navigate his world of wealth while keeping her perspective from her world of struggle. She made jokes about the differences between her $43 budget and his unlimited resources. But underneath the comedy was truth. The story of two people from completely different worlds who found each other through chaos and built something beautiful from the wreckage. The perfect ending. After the show, Sebastian met her backstage. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her with the passion of someone who'd been waiting all evening to do exactly that. You were incredible, he said against her lips. I had good material, Ruby replied. You make a very entertaining muse. Happy to provide inspiration. They walked out into the New York night together, hand in hand, navigating the crowded streets with easy familiarity. Around them, the city hummed with energy and possibility. Somewhere, someone was probably spilling coffee on someone else. Somewhere, disaster was becoming opportunity. I love you, Sebastian said suddenly, stopping on the crowded sidewalk to look at her properly. I love you too, Ruby replied, no longer scared of the vulnerability those words required. Even though you're way too organized and you own more suits than any human needs. And I love you even though you're perpetually 5 minutes late and you still can't carry beverages without incident. Some things never change. Thank goodness for that. They continued walking, two people who'd collided by accident and chosen each other on purpose. Ruby thought about where she'd been a year ago, broke and struggling and wondering if she'd ever catch a break. She thought about all the disasters that had led her exactly where she needed to be. Life still threw punches. But now she had someone to laugh with through every chaotic moment. Someone who taught her that love didn't require perfection, just honesty and humor and the courage to keep showing up for each other. The universe's twisted sense of humor had given her the greatest gift of all. And Ruby planned to spend the rest of her life being grateful for that first spectacular disaster that changed everything. The end.